Hello, this is War on Maps, and we are just going to do a follow-up video World, for the New World, New Empires video, where the top 10 most powerful countries went to war with the rest of the world, and this is how the peace treaty ended up. So, yeah. Now we are just going to continue this little thing. And if you want to watch the first video, I will put it in the end along with the best video for you. And also, I'll also link in the description. And now this video will be about if they went to war with each other. So yeah, there's all the different colors. The US is probably in the best position because it doesn't border many. It only borders France as a country it will need to attack. But yeah, so there's the top 10 most powerful countries when I was doing the video were number 1 US, then Russia, China, India, the UK, then it was I think South Korea, then I think it was then it was Pakistan, then Japan, then France, then Italy. So yeah. And the countries are allowed to invade other countries that are not the top 10 most powerful and the empires here. So they could gain more strategically good land to invade someone else. Because like Russia might want to invade Italy through this narrow gap, but this narrow gap is too easily defendable. So they'll probably need to either like take out Slovakia before Italy decides to. And the top 10 most powerful countries are not allowed to make any alliances to make sure they don't do anything. So yeah, let's just jump right in to it. And all these things will probably be happening at the same order, not the same time. They're gonna happen in the same time. But yeah, and there won't be an occupying color because there's a lot of colors that I used. So let's get this thing started. And to start this off, the British are gonna try to invade a lot. They're gonna take over a lot of African countries to try to expand their influence in the area, which they did pretty easily, and I won't explain it because it's not a major part of this video. It's just one country taking over another, and I'm pretty sure there will be another part in here, so stay tuned for part 2 about this. So yeah, the British have just conquered a huge portion of inner Africa, and they're nearly to their dream of having a line between Cape Town and Cairo. But now they're gonna begin attacking, but the British won't be the ones attacking at the moment. Instead, it'll be the French, which are gonna try to focus not being on the British because they might want to try to not attack them yet. Instead, they're gonna attack Finland, which I have no colors. I'll just show it as white. And they begin an invasion into northern Finland and also make a small naval landing in Helsinki. And Finland knows the best thing for their people is just to surrender. And France annexes Finland. France did that entire thing to get a better border onto Russia, because Russia and Italy were kind of focusing on each other, as Italy was taking out Czechia to make they took over Slovakia to make sure Russia wouldn't take it and get a huge border on them. But now Poland is seeming like another option, and I did say there were no alliances, but there are agreements. So the French and Italians decided to make a partition of Poland to make sure Italy, to make sure the Soviet Union won't get it. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it that from now on. So yeah, the Italians get this part and the French get this part. The French get the bigger part because they are the more powerful country, and Italy didn't want the little to have a border with the Soviet Union, and France specifically wanted it because it knew eventually its goal was to attack it. But now the Pakistanis are gonna declare war on the British, and because the British are not ready for this, Pakistanis are gonna have they're gonna be pretty good in, wait a second. The Pakistanis are gonna be pretty good in Iraq until some British troops arrive, when they push them out of Iraq and start pushing into Iran. They also, so after pushing them out of Iraq, they're gonna start pushing into Iran, trying to capture its coast. And then they are also gonna, so they're gonna begin pushing into Oman. Yeah, that's Oman. And eventually the Pakistanis know that was the wrong idea to try and invade the British. So they surrender, and the rule is it is not allowed to lose territory when two empires go to war. They have to get fully annexed, and I basically did that so I won't have to keep track of all the colors. But yeah, it's just also to save you some time. And I know this Pakistani empire wouldn't fall this quickly, but they are now. And I forgot to put a little something here. And the British and the Italians and the French all make an agreement that pretty soon they're going to be attacking Russia. But after the UK incorporates some countries into its empire, just to make it have a better border than just Norway, it gains Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia, because those countries are way too weak to defeat the British or just hold on for a tiny bit. So they are all incorporated to the British Empire. And now the British also have a better border. And now the Italians also want a better border, so they incorporate Romania into it. at first they didn't want a border with Russia because they knew it was more powerful, but now that they have two powerful allies, they think it's a good idea. But Russia sees this and they're gonna try to, and they take over Montenegro, Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, and Kosovo, just to make sure Italy will have to fight on another front. They also managed to take over Bulgaria. And yeah. So the Soviet plan would be to advance quickly through Romania and cut off this area, then take over Romania, and hold a defensive position against the French around in Poland. And also down here, they'll hold defensive positions against the British in the mountains, with also making an agreement with Afghanistan that it would be incorporated into it along with Uzbekistan, to make sure they have a pretty big population, at least, to make sure they can hold on against those allies, because Afghanistan and Uzbekistan know they will eventually be targeted. So they think it's just going to be better for them if they just make sure they're already going to be incorporated without taking big casualties. But the war is not going to start for a bit of time. And instead, we're going to have an agreement between Japan and Korea to attack the Chinese. So, yeah, China was definitely not prepared for this. And Japan is extremely powerful now because of their huge population gain in the Philippines, Taiwan, and also Java. Just Java is enough. So yeah, now we're gonna just see if China can hold on against Korea and Japan. So beginning this war, there will be what is this? I do not know what is happening here. Does that also happen here? Yeah. I'm just gonna need to color China blue for a second. Sorry about that. Just need to color China blue so it won't happen. Where'd that? There's a little hole somewhere. There is always one little hole. Sorry about this little slowdown, but I believe this should be over pretty quick. And yeah, now I just need to get blue and color. There is another hole. I'm very sorry about this. I don't know how to edit my videos, so I'm sorry this is taking so long. There's that hole. So I won't be able to edit this out of the video. I'm really sorry. But at least I know I'll be able to search for mistakes. And now finally it's actually working. And now we can actually color China fully blue. And let's just hope Japan's color doesn't come. Yes, it works on blue. So I'm bit worried about the US colored blue, but let's just hope that doesn't matter. So Japan and Korea are just going to position their troops in the Korean border. Japan is told to attack closer to Beijing, and Korea is told to attack just through their north border, which they are able to sweep more decisively than the Japanese, because the Japanese are facing harder defenses as they are approaching China's populated areas. And then Japan also takes out the Chinese islands of Sumatra, and also makes sure, and also the Chinese part of Borneo. The Japanese managed to take it out. The Koreans then begin an advance from Cambodia, because it is one of the places they got after destroying the world, and they're pushing up Vietnam and Laos. And now China is mobilized, so it's gonna be able to push the Koreans back and even push into North Korea. But the Japanese defenses are fortified, so they are able to, but they are nearly able to cut it off, which kind of scared the Japanese, so they began occupying parts of northern Korea. And the Chinese also managed to push back the Korean offensive in Indochina. So they are even able to push into Cambodia, taking out all the Korean occupied areas and nearly take out all of Cambodia, but there are many Japanese reinforcements coming from Indonesia and also Korean reinforcements coming from Malaysia. So they were able to hold on. Down here, the Japanese are going to begin another major offensive, which sweeps through China after a breakthrough was made. But Beijing is not captured, but there are some major cities here that were captured, so that is a big morale boost for the Japanese army. And now they are able to capture this entire bay or gulf. I have no idea what that is. But there's a downside that they lose the island of Taiwan to China. But because they're a little scared about this connection in Korea, they occupy the rest of northern Korea, and now Korean troops are able to come and assist their Japanese counterparts in these offenses. And because Hong Kong and Maku are pretty good ports, the Japanese and Koreans decided to work together to split the island. And the Koreans landed in Maku and the Japanese landed in Hong Kong. And together they began attacking major cities and ports. They began bombarding ports along this coast, and eventually they were planning on landing on Beijing and Shanghai, which are both really close to each other and are both really major cities. But they noticed they didn't need to, and the Koreans were told that is their main objective, just get there, which is what they pulled off. And China needs some help, but everyone here is a bit busy, or they don't like them. Like India isn't best friends with them. And Russia is kind of going to be focused on fortifying its walls, its border over here. And eventually, but the Chinese begin conscripting, and they manage to retake Shanghai and Beijing and push the Koreans back until they get to the Japanese fortifications. And then that is a huge morale boost for their army. And yeah, so they are able to hold on to those areas, but down here, the Koreans are told to make a major offensive as China is mainly focused up north near the more major cities, but this place also has some pretty populated cities along the coast, which is why the Japanese are told to capture the coast. The Koreans are told to fortify their flanks, and eventually they capture many major Chinese cities, and eventually they even capture Shanghai and Tianjin. And yeah, and then the worst thing that could happen to China, there are some Shangsheng rebels and some Tibetese rebels, and also Republic of China rebels that are popping up. And they're all in favor of uniting with Japan and Korea. So they all connect to each other through narrow corridors, and then begin encircling some Chinese troops. And now we get to the major battles, to the more detailed battles, like I said I would do. And there's no major cities here, but there are a lot of Chinese troops. So eventually their stronghold is placed near the middle. So the rebels' plan are to advance together and connect, splitting the encirclement into two, and then allow wipeout divisions to wipe out the rest. And that nearly happened. They nearly managed to encircle it, and then the Chinese pulled up their main battle tactics and managed to hold it off. And they also managed to pull off their own encirclement. And eventually these encirclements were forced to connect and eventually consolidate in the middle. But the Chinese were in the process of breaking through the entire encirclement, and they pulled that off. But eventually they re-encircled them, only allowing a couple thousand troops to escape. And now they managed to split up the encirclement like they originally planned. And now there's a full-on attack in the south, from the south and north. And then there's attack from the north and south on the northern part. Though the northern part is able to hold out longer, as it was planning on putting a full-blown offensive to gain ground and nearly break through the encirclement when they completely fortified those areas and pushed them back. And yeah, this is and eventually the northern encirclement falls, and China looks kind of like when Japan did some crazy stuff in the 1940s. So yeah, that's basically how China looked like when it surrendered. And they surrendered, and the people, according to the ethnicity of the people there and what they wanted, this is how the new borders look like. And yeah, they're pretty messy. I'm not even going to bother drawing lines over there. That's just how it's going to look. This little part of Northern Korea wanted to be with Japan, so they did. There's this little awkward strip across here that wanted to be with Korea, so we got it. But most of the useful land is part of Japan, even though Korea was a stronger power. But yeah, and this will And I think this is going to be the end of this first video. Next video, we'll have some pretty interesting things going on in Europe. And maybe some American invasions into the rest of the Americas. But yeah, China looks pretty, so overall, China looks pretty messed up. Russia looks more like the Soviet Union, just with Afghanistan, the one thing they couldn't get. And also, Italy looks pretty powerful. So does France and the UK. The UK is nearly there into completing their big old chain through Africa. So I guess these countries do want to recolonize Africa. I'm not saying that was a good thing. That was horrible. But yeah, let's get. So yeah, I hope I'll see you next video. And before we do that, let's just zoom out a tiny bit and see how the world looked like right after the empires beat everybody. And this is how it looked like. This is how it looked like. So this was the empires before, and now this is the empires now. China looks destroyed. China is actually destroyed. So yeah, it has changed pretty dynamically, especially with like Pakistan and China being destroyed. Also a lot of stuff in Europe going on. Germany hasn't been invaded because there was an international agreement not to invade Germany to make sure the countries don't get any more OP. But I don't think that agreement's gonna last. So yeah, most of Europe is controlled by one of the four major powers. There's only a little bit in the south and some of Central Europe with like Switzerland, Germany, and Czechia. And that's all of Europe that's not controlled. Africa is still the least controlled continent, even with all the British things there. Asia is the most controlled continent, only a couple countries in the Middle East and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. So yeah, this is it for this video. I hope I'll see you next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye.